Hey now, Metalheads, it's Blackmetalwerewolf making a brand new video for you this week. So when it comes to Metalheads, there's no doubt that we all have a rather enthusiastic love for the music genre. After all, if we didn't, we wouldn't be called Metalheads. But what is to be done when that enthusiastic love turns into obnoxious arrogance? And that is what I'd like to talk about today. So I suppose the biggest question there may be is, what exactly do I mean by someone having an obnoxious arrogance when it comes to their love of metal? By that I mean when someone loves it so much that not only are they enthusiastic about the music, but they also have to demean and degrade anyone else who is not a part of it, and in some cases even demean and degrade those who are within the same club. I'm sure we've all been around people who are, metal is the best thing ever, it's the only type of music that's worth it, and everything else can go fuck itself. Now, by all means, am I in the camp that metal is the best type of music? I'm not pretending that I'm not saying that here. However, when it gets to the point where someone is an obnoxious loudmouth about it and has to demean everyone around them, that's when it becomes a problem. Now, some of you may be asking, how exactly is this a problem? That one loudmouth idiot certainly shouldn't represent all of us. And you are 100% right, that loudmouth idiot certainly should not represent all of us. The problem is, the person with the biggest mouth tends to be the type of person who gets on the soapbox and makes themselves the representative for the entire group. And I'm not just talking about heavy metal here, there are people like that in essentially every type of group. Be it political parties, religious groups, any sort of fandom really, there's always that one guy who has to be the loudmouth horse's ass that can ruin it for everybody. And some of you may be thinking, okay, well, even if there is that person like that, what harm does it really do? In my opinion, that type of person can kind of deter people who might want to join the group. For example, there might be some kid out there who's into like punk or hard rock music, and they might want to get into something a bit heavier, but then there's that one guy online or at a concert or at a music store who's like, oh, you like Kiss, get the fuck out of here, you poser. And then that whole experience for that kid could possibly be totally ruined. Now, some of you may be thinking that situations like that don't happen. That's total bullshit. Things like that happen on a consistent basis. And like I said earlier, it's not just within heavy metal. Just a personal experience from my life, when I first went into middle school, I was hardcore into fucking Star Wars. And there was this one kid who was in my brother's class who was also really hardcore into Star Wars. So when I found out about this, I approached him. I was like, hey man, you like Star Wars, I like Star Wars, let's fucking talk about it. I'm sure there's a lot of things we can talk about from the movies, video games, action figures, all these cool things we can talk about Star Wars. And this guy was such an obnoxious dickhead, it made me like Star Wars less. He told me I didn't know anything about Star Wars, that I was a poser. Believe it or not, this fucking nerd was saying I'm not a big enough nerd to be friends with him, of all things, right? So yeah, like, there are people like that who take it upon themselves to be representatives or spokesmen just so they can feel special about being in their little bubble, about them being the biggest Star Wars fan or them being the biggest metalhead. Even though in reality, as much as we all love metal and we think it makes us special, there are literally millions of metalheads all over the world, so we're part of a very large group, and to think that we can exclude others because their musical taste isn't as heavy as ours, it's pretty fucking ridiculous. Now, I have a pretty big confession to make. When I was a teenager, I was 100% like that. And I look back at that and I fucking cringe at what a horse's ass I made out of myself, right? Because like when I was in high school, like, metal's the best fucking music ever, any other type of music can go fuck itself, you like Taylor Swift, I was just such an asshole to other people. Now, chances are, even if I was nice to those people, they might not have gotten into heavy metal, but had I been nicer and less obnoxious about it, I'm sure I could have maybe converted a few people, or maybe suggested some bands to some people. Thankfully, I've totally changed my ways. I'm not like that anymore at all, because it's just such a stupid way to live. Once again, for example, a few years ago at work, a guy that I worked with was into more rock bands, and he asked me for some metal bands he could get into. So on one of my breaks, I took out a piece of paper and a pen, and I wrote down at least 20 metal bands to give to him. If that really stuck with him or not, I don't really know. Didn't really converse with him much afterwards. But I think I was pretty nice to go and take that effort to try to get someone into some heavier bands. Had I been obnoxious, the conversation would have started and ended there, but since I took a few extra steps to be nice to someone and be open with them, it probably made a much bigger difference. Now, regarding what I just said, when I was a teenager, I was that way, and I was thinking, is that just like teenage arrogance? You know, when you're a teenager and you get into something and you're super enthused about it and it's the best fucking thing ever. I want to say it was just that, but it really isn't, because I've met people within my age range or considerably older who are still like that. So it's not just something, oh, you know, it's just some 16-year-old running their mouth because they discovered something new and cool. That I can accept, as long as you grow up and mature. Cool, 100%, everyone's a stupid teenager, I get it. But when you take that obnoxious arrogance and hold on to it into your 30s, 40s, 50s, dude, it's time to fucking grow up and let it go. Be nice. Like, I'm not some bleeding heart hippie, but you don't have to be an obnoxious dickhead to everybody. Like the old saying goes, you catch a lot more flies with honey than you do with vinegar, right? I think it is worth noting that people like that tend to be the minority in pretty much any group. Like I said at the beginning of the video, unfortunately people like that with the bigots' mouths tend to be the ones who get on the soapbox and start preaching, and it may give a false representation of the group, and that is very unfortunate. What can be done about people like that? I'm certainly not suggesting going out and getting into a fist fight with somebody like that. I think that people like that should usually just be ignored, because that's all they wanted. They just want the attention, right? So if you ignore them, they tend to go away. Like one of the Halloween episodes of The Simpsons when all the advertisements come to life. If you ignore it, they go away, just like that old lady who was looking for the beef. Just let it go and let them do their own thing. It'll eventually fade away into obscurity. As for the reasonable metalhead, just keep doing what you're doing, be polite, have manners, we're humans, we weren't raised by wolves. If someone asks for some band suggestions, give them to them. You don't have to be an obnoxious dick about it. You don't have to hold someone to some standard that you've made up in your head. Well, you can't like the music I like because you like blank. That's fucking ridiculous. So that's all I have to say on this subject, but now of course I'd like to get your guys' opinion on all of this. What do you think of obnoxious, arrogant metalheads? Do you think they're a problem? Do you not think they're a problem? Do you think it's good or bad? Were you that type of metalhead? Have you changed? If so, what did you do to change? Please leave me your comments and your stories. I would love to know. I'm sure other metalheads would like to know too. And now, like my past videos, I either do an album recommendation or an album warning, and today is another recommendation. The band is Amon Amarth, the album is The Great Heathen Army. I absolutely loved this album, and I thought it was considerably better than their last album, Berserker. I did not really care for that one, but this one I thought was quite good. My favorite songs on this were Heathen, Find a Way or Make One, Saxons and Vikings, and The Serpent's Trail. However, all the songs on this album are very good. Those just happen to be my favorite. So if you haven't checked it out by now, definitely go out and listen to it. I don't think you'll regret it. Once again, Amon Amarth, The Great Heathen Army. Give it a listen. So that's it for today's video. If you like what you saw, don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave me a comment letting me know what you thought of today's video, checking out some of my past videos, and sharing them with a few of your friends while you're at it. If you'd like to keep up with me on a more daily basis, you can follow me on Facebook and on Instagram. I also have a P.O. box open. All of that info is down in the description. I also have patches for sale, so if you'd like to get your very own, you can click right over here. There's also a link down in the description. Overall, thank you very much for watching, guys, and don't forget to stay brutal.